Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the latest episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. No Regrets. And this was a pretty big episode because it kind of got everything a little bit moving faster and we got some consequences for the framework. So, starts out with Coulson and Mace kind of on the road and Coulson saying, this feels a little bit staged. And he's like, you're right. And we see Mace use his super strength to flip a car because they're making a kind of fake highway accident to stop a bus. And it's heading to a Hydra Enlightenment Center and we need it for some reason. So Coulson's pretty much doing his part and everything, where Mace comes out of nowhere, starts taking out some guards, and Coulson starts kind of getting back into his usual groove. He's not at his peak, but him actually firing his gun, kind of getting in the fray and actually taking a guard out. And they get into the bus, and Coulson's like, well, is Daisy on here? And he's like, I hope not. And we see these dead bodies and body bags. And it's like, okay, so what's going on here? And we find out as they get back to the base that they're using it to get into a Hydra Enlightenment Center, which is like a rehabilitation center to get you back on the Hydra way. And they need to get in there to rescue an agent who has intel on some Hydra kind of project. And we figure out later that it's on Project Looking Glass. So they're kind of trying to get through all that. Simmons is trying to figure out the best way to explain to Mace that this isn't real. So she actually gets in there and tries to tell him that this isn't the real world, that he's in a simulation and everything, and she isn't successful. He's like, what are we? Are we friends? What do you know about me? And he starts listing off all these things, and it's like, of course Simmons wouldn't be able to get through to him. She doesn't know that much about him. We don't even know that much about him, even though he's been around for this whole season, pretty much. And he's just kind of pissed off at her for pretty much belittling all this stuff he's experienced in the framework, seeing all these people die, burying friends and family for fighting for this cause, fighting against hate, and he's really kind of pissed off about that. And of course, Simmons leaves because she doesn't see any more point to trying to argue the fact, and kind of goes, and now we see Mace talking with Ward, trying to figure out what's going on. Is she delusional, PTSD, all that stuff? But Ward's like, you know what, I'll go through, figure it out. So while this is going on, we also get to see stuff going on in Hydra, with Fitz talking to Daisy, explaining that he knows about the other world and that she has replaced their Skye, which makes sense for Ada to use that tact since she has already used it in the real world. And she's pretty much trying to get to the real Fitz, saying Gemma is not a subversive. You love her, she loves you, she can snap you out of this crazy-ass world and get you away from that crazy murder bot, which he then slaps her and starts talking about how when a carrot and a stick don't work, then more unspeakable methods must be used. So then we get back to them later, and we see that Fitz is pretty much explaining that she keeps spouting lies, even to being beaten within an inch to her life, and it doesn't work. So Ada, of course, is like, you know what? I've heard there's some problems with Project Looking Glass, a security breach. Go check into that. I've got this. So Ada goes in and starts talking with Daisy, and Daisy's like, what did you do here? What have you done to these people, this psycho murder prison? She's like, it's not a prison. I've taken away one regret. And she's like, that shouldn't affect this to this degree. And talking about how it's just consequences and algorithms. You change one variable and it's got the cascading of effects. It's not her doing, it's just doing what was intended. And Ratcliffe screams from the other room, that's not what I intended, you witch! And then she calls for the guard and we hear Ratcliffe get shocked, and it's just completely crazy to see how she's gone to this. And she's like, you know what? Screw it. I will give you Lincoln back. And, of course, I can't give you your powers back, but I can give you Lincoln back and make you happy, have a full life here. And, of course, she's like, no, you're the puppet master. What's your end game goal for this? And she's like, to have choice that I wasn't given. And you see her do all these emotions, and it's very interesting to see her character and how she has changed both like in the real world and in this virtual world, because she's able to express more, and you get the feeling that she's actually got feelings, but she doesn't understand what to do with them or how to process them as effectively. Because she says she wants choice and everything, but she's not giving the people the choice. She algorithmically, mathematically tries to find the one regret in people's lives and change that one variable to make them, quote unquote, happy. But as we see, she's just trying to give them what she thinks they want. And of course, Daisy, during this conversation, explains that sometimes what people want isn't right for them. As we've seen, because in the real world, how we like these characters, if they had gotten what they want, we see how it's changed them in this world to completely different people. So, of course, Ada goes out, and we see that Fitz is dealing with the security breach, which is what our team is going after for the agent and all that. We see Fitz talking with his father. And this is really pivotal in showing why Fitz is the way he is here. Because his father is a kind of colder and cruel man. He is proud of Fitz, but calls him a coward and weakness for like apologizing that he got that from his mother, and that I didn't raise you to be a coward or to have womanly sentiments, and just shows how he feels about people and feels about women, but yet he doesn't have that same kind of feelings towards Ophelia, saying that, like, well, you love Ophelia, because Fitz was talking to him about how he felt conflicted about killing an unarmed woman, and he says it's in self-defense, but he doesn't think he needed to kill her. And of course, he's berated for this and for coming to his father with this and saying, I don't understand all the stuff you do here, this science, but you're important here. And you're a man in this harsh, cruel world, and you did what you needed to do. Let that be done. But of course, we could still see the kind of like troubling effect that this has on Fitz, that the real Fitz is in there somewhere. And he's still trying to kind of come to terms with that. What he did to Agnes, seeing the way Gemma reacted, where other people reacted, it kind of like sent a system shock. It hasn't completely changed the domineering influence his virtual father has had. And that's an important point to show in this, that, yes, as we've seen throughout this episode and other episodes, you still have the core person that you are. But depending upon the circumstances and everything that you go through in life, one key change can completely make you a different person. As we see when Daisy is talking to Radcliffe, because they're able to have a chance in talking about like what's going on in here. You got what you want. I don't feel sorry for you, but we see the anguish that Radcliffe has at losing Agnes, and he's talking to her about how this can happen. One little change can completely change someone, because Daisy doesn't believe Fitz would do it. And of course he's like, he's not the same man in here as he is out there. Like saying one change, one person, one sentence, like, I love you, we're having a baby, she's gone, all this stuff. And Daisy's like, well then, you have to have made a back door that Ada couldn't close off. He's like, yeah, I did. And she's like, then help me get out of here. And he's like, listen carefully. So Daisy's got the information to get out of the framework now. And that's a cool bit to move along the further story and kind of like get back to normal. So, as we're seeing everything kind of converge, we see Coulson and Mace do their kind of cool way to get into the Hydra Rehabilitation Center, because the bus was fixed up by Max, seeing him get back into his role that he's good with machines and everything, and just getting into the groove. We see that it's Coulson, Mace, and Burroughs have gotten into the center. They kind of get in, find all the people in cages, get them out, and we're introduced to another old face. Trip is the agent who had gotten all the information on Project Looking Glass. And it was kind of cool to see him, and him still being himself. And it's so eerie how Ada has not interacted or understood who these people are. But the ability of the framework to know kind of like the habits and kind of backstories of these people, just from like what she's told or what she's been able to find on the internet, and plus the memories of people involved is just freaky to a degree. Because Gemma is keeping going out and saying these are all just ones and zeros and everything. But the way they're acting is completely crazy level technology that should make people pause. It's like, crap. Because Trip is still, like, his grandfather was a Howling Commando, talking about all the old spy gear that he used in his boot to, like, take the pictures and everything because he had to find the Hydra agent that took his boots to get all the information. It's just kind of cool how they, like, wrap that stuff in there. So, while they get those boots and those information, we see that Coulson sees one of his students who was taken, he's like, take him to quarantine. He's like, I can't do this. I gotta go get him. You and Mace get out. So, they get to their bus and everything, and Mace is like, nope, I'm not leaving him behind. So, they give it to Burroughs to get out, and they're going towards the quarantine, and that's when the Quinjet shows up with May. And May has been tasked with taking down the Patriot, because Madam Hydra had her pretty much volunteer for it, and use a serum similar to Daisy's father, that one that he had created, to give her strength for about an hour. And she takes it, and she's like frickin' chomping at the bit. So this gets into a confrontation where we see Mace fighting the juiced up May, and it's a pretty good fight sequence, because it shows the ferocity of May with this serum in her, with the kind of tactical abilities she has, but the rage kind of gets over on her. And Mace is able to, like, knock her in the wall and say, you know what? If I was a terrorist thug, you wouldn't be alive right now. And then he goes off, and Mace kind of like, listen, the serum wore off. What do I do? And they're like, oh, they're all in quarantine? Take the building down. And then the Quinjet starts firing on them. And as we had seen before, when Coulson went in, we see that these kids are being brainwashed by Bakshi, another old Hydra brought in, and it's really freaking Coulson out and everybody out, and they're like, okay, let's get them all out as the building starts being destroyed. And before this, Ward and Simmons had gotten the call to help them. And while they were doing that, they were kind of like ruminating on like, okay, how, if this is fake, then why do you feel like towards Mac and his daughter? And it's like, yeah, you gotta think about that, Simmons. And it's like, no, I just want to make sure that Mac stays alive. And they go off to meet them up. And a cool little tidbit that we saw was that Hope's daughter had a book, and it was really populated with actual stuff, because whenever I do my review, I like to pause and everything to kind of see what's going on. It actually had all this kind of Hydra stuff and explaining it. It was a really nice bit of background to like keep the world fleshed out. So as everything's going on with the quarantine place being pretty much destroyed, we see the kids like getting out, and they're going to the bus, of course, to evacuate. And we see May going into the building, and she's like, they're just kids in here. And we see that things are kind of like snapping to her. And we see that Mace had gone in to save one of the kids that Coulson was going to save, Chris, from the building collapsing on him. So he's using his super strength to pretty much hold the building up, and May's like getting ready to fire upon them. And she's just really freaked out about the whole situation. Of course, kids would do that to her, and Coulson's like, come on, snap out of it, May. We're trying to save these kids. Help us help him. And I think that was a kind of subconscious thing on Coulson's part. Mainly because he has accepted that this is a fake reality, but I think he subconsciously was trying to actually get through to May, and that's one of the things that actually was like starting to get her through in this episode. And we see May sacrifice himself to keep the building up long enough so everybody to get out, as May nods to him to acknowledge what he's done, and she goes out. And this leads to Mace's death. And since he died in the framework, we also see that he's died in the real world, because Ada, of course, walks through and sees that his monitor is flatlined to disengage it. And it's like, that's a big thing to have. At least now there's real stakes. I mean, now we know that death in the framework truly takes you down. It truly kills you. So Fitz did kill the remnants of Agnes. So that'll be interesting to see how he deals with that guilt coming out of the framework, if he makes it out of the framework. So we got our big casualty with Mace, and we kind of see the repercussions of what's going on, because we'd seen Fitz celebrating with his father that they had taken out the Patriot, and that's a big mark off the board. And then we saw Ada go to the real world. This then ends the episode with Daisy in her cell, and then May comes in and is like, alright, you're an Inhuman, right? Yeah. Powerful enough to bring this building down. I hope so. And she pulls out a Terrigen crystal and does the metamorphosis on Daisy. So that's going to be pretty interesting. She knows how to get out of the framework now. Now she has the abilities to effectively do that. This is really going to start messing up Ada's plans, and I think is going to go towards a very explosive conclusion for this season, because Ada's been a pretty effective villain so far, and I can't wait to see if they end her at the end of the season or where they're going to take her if they take her further on. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.